Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar on Bureau Veritas's Food Waste Management Systems. My name is Allison Carlson, and I am the training specialist here at Bureau Veritas North America. We're going to go ahead and just jump right on into the webinar. I do want to give you just a little bit more information about what we do here at Bureau Veritas and who we are. Bureau Veritas is a world leader in inspections and services or certification services. Created in 1828, the group has approximately 82,000 employees located in more than 1,600 offices and laboratories across the globe. Bureau Veritas helps its clients improve their performance by offering services and innovative solutions in order to ensure that their assets, products, infrastructure, and processes meet standards and regulations in terms of quality, health and safety, environmental protection, and social responsibilities. Bureau Veritas is a business to society service company that contributes to positively transforming the world we live in. We work closely with our clients to address the critical challenges they face and to link these to emerging aspirations of society. We work with companies to build and protect their reputations, supporting them as they forge the foundation of trust that are built to last. And two things I want to hone in on here is our inspection and audits and certifications. Our inspections involve on-site verification that products, services, assets, and facilities meet specifications and operate as intended. They cover a wide range of services designed to control quality, verify quantities, and meet regulatory requirements. Our inspection services help companies have confidence in the reliability and integrity of their products, assets, and systems. And our certification. As an independent third party and accredited certification body, we provide certification services to attest that management systems, services, and personnel comply with standards. Equipment and products can be certified to meet sector-specific or industry standards, international, local, or volunteer standards, or manufacturer or clients' requirements. Certification enables companies to assess new markets, strengthen their brands, or simply obtain a license to operate. And a few housekeeping things here for today's webinar. Our organizers will keep microphones and cameras off during the duration of the webinar. Any questions, please use the Q&A chat box. I really encourage this. Let us help you. Whatever you need, we can help you get those needs met. If you have any questions that did not get answered during the live session, our speakers will definitely be reaching out to you via email. And the webinar will be recorded. The recording and slides will be shared with all registered parties by email tomorrow. And without any further ado, I'm going to introduce our speakers for today. We have Ms. Kimberly Cole. She is Bureau Veritas's Business Development Manager for Food Safety. Kim has been with Bureau Veritas since 2019. She has extensive knowledge with all things food safety. Kim has had many different roles in the industry, and that was what makes her the best. She works closely with our clients to ensure that they are meeting their audit timelines and training needs. And our second speaker today is going to be Dr. Prit Hora. He has 20 years plus of experience in the industry. Dr. Hora is Bureau Veritas's lead auditor and food safety trainer. He is qualified auditor for SQF, Briggs, HACCP, FSSC, and cGMP. Dr. Hora is well known in the industry and was one of the key speakers this year in the SQF conference. So Ms. Kim, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to you, and you can take over.
Thank you so much, Allison. So hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining today. I'm Kim Knoll, and I'm part of the certification team here at Bureau Veritas. And I'm going to share a brief introduction to the topic of food loss and waste. This has been an issue for centuries, really, but it's become more prominent topic in recent years, as there's been an increase in awareness of its impacts. I think it's a really interesting topic to learn about because we can consider reduction of food loss and waste in our workplaces, but also in our personal lives when we're doing meal planning or shopping at the grocery store or even dining out. So we have opportunities to make an impact both at work and at home, which is pretty cool. So once I wrap up my slides, my coworker Prit will share some information as to the regulations that you may need to be aware of. And then we also have a few links and resources that we'd like to share afterwards. So first, I just would like to point out the difference in the terms between food loss and food waste. The key difference between food loss and food waste is really the stage in the food supply chain at which the loss or the waste is occurring. So food loss refers to the decrease in food quantities throughout the supply chain before it's reaching the consumer. This typically is happening during the agricultural production or post-harvest activities, and then manufacturing and processing steps. And common causes include things like spoiled product, could be from pest infestation or mold contamination. Weather issues can certainly impact growing. Inadequate storage or the inability to keep food cool or at the proper temperatures on its way to market. Equipment issues or spill points in the manufacturing process. And even our QC samples or the sample retains that we keep and then later discard, those also technically are contributing. And then as far as food waste goes, this is happening at the retail and the consumer stages of the food supply chain. And common causes for food waste include retail and consumer behaviors, such as overbuying or poor planning, out of spec for quality reasons, or very strict cosmetic standards. There could be misunderstanding of expiration labels and really just any disposal of edible food. So for these reasons, food loss is more prevalent in low-income countries, and food waste is more prevalent in high-income countries where consumers have more access to food. So that makes sense, because if you're in a high poverty area, there's often very little waste, but unfortunately, there's several causes of loss that can occur. But both food loss and waste contribute to the overall problem of inefficiency in our food system and the economic impacts that are associated with it. So why is food waste important? The data is pretty alarming. The scale of the problem is significant. Globally, around 1/3 of all food produced for human consumption is lost or wasted. And that amounts to about 1.3 billion tons a year. And of course, this has significant economic, environmental, and social impacts. So if we look at the environmental impact, food waste that ends up in landfills produces methane, which is a very harmful greenhouse gas. And then we also need to consider all of the production and transportation that went into making that food that eventually became wasted. All of that has contributes to climate change as well, and water usage and energy usage and biodiversity loss. So if food loss and waste were a country, it would actually rank third in the world after the US and China as contributors to overall greenhouse gases. So that's a lot. Food waste represents a significant economic cost, estimated at about $1 trillion per year globally. And if we look at the social impact, we have to think about food insecurity. And about over 800 million people worldwide suffer from food insecurity and the lack of access to safe, nutritious food. So reducing food waste could help address global hunger. The root cause for global hunger is not necessarily not having enough food in the world. Hunger is really more a challenge of income, poverty, and distribution. And reducing food waste will not necessarily solve world hunger, but it can provide more food into the emergency food systems, which will hopefully reach those that are in need. Oops, sorry. Okay, and so if you're not familiar with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, you might want to read up a little bit on this, as many companies are using these goals as a foundation for their own sustainability initiatives. But basically, the SDGs are a set of 17 interconnected global goals adopted by the United Nations in 2015. And they provide a framework for achieving a better and more sustainable future by 2030. And this slide shows an overview of these goals. They're designed to be interconnected and to address economic, social, and environmental dimensions of sustainable development. And the overall aim of Goal 12 is to promote sustainable consumption and production patterns, reduce waste and pollution, and decouple economic growth with environmental degradation. And then target 12.3 is specific to food waste. And this goal is to reduce food waste worldwide by 50% per capita by the year 2030. And there are many high-profile organizations who have publicly committed to reducing food loss and waste. And there's a group known as Champions 12.3. And you can search that name and you'll be able to recognize a number of companies and organizations who are helping to drive some global action. And then by making progress on Goal 12, we can positively impact other important goals, including the elimination of hunger and poverty, climate action, conservation of water, economic growth, and life on land. And lastly, this is just a sampling of companies and organizations who are committed to taking action. Again, just a sampling, and it continues to grow. And I am on various food manufacturers' websites for a number of different reasons quite often, and I'm seeing more and more companies post on their website their commitment to reducing waste, and a lot of times it is very specific to food waste. So why do companies set food waste reduction targets? Sorry. Companies recognize the need to reduce their their environmental impact. Reducing waste reduces operating costs, so it just makes good sense. But it's important because stakeholders are telling us it's important. These stakeholders include investors, employees, governments, and consumers are demanding ESG data so they can make investment and purchasing decisions. ESG being environmental, social governance. Therefore, companies that show strong ESG performance have some advantages, like they can retain top talent within their organization. Their brand can become more favorable, and there's potential for improved revenue. So collectively, it can create a competitive advantage. And if we think back to the previous slide and consider the Champions 12.3 and think about all those organizations that are declaring a commitment to reduce waste and that it's important to them, and if we're part of their supply chain or want to become part of their supply chain, we may soon see questions as to how we are contributing to some of those UN sustainable goals, and perhaps even specific to food waste. So how do manufacturers reduce food waste? There's a couple of common key steps. There can be implementation of better forecasting and demand planning to avoid overproduction, optimizing inventory management. Optimizing inventory management and upgrading equipment and infrastructure to reduce losses during manufacturing, eliminating spill points throughout production, implementing quality control measures to catch and divert substandard products. Companies can also identify opportunities to repurpose food processing byproducts. And if you're looking for ways that you can repurpose your byproducts, perhaps you could even consider how your company may be able to reuse another manufacturer's byproducts in your process. But you can partner with animal feed sources, composting, or biofuel producers to divert unavoidable waste as well. Packaging innovations can take place to help extend shelf life. And then, of course, training of your staff, training on waste reduction practices and lean manufacturing principles, incentivize employees to identify and implement waste saving initiatives, and really just making waste consciousness part of the culture. And also engaging with consumers and customers on education on how to properly store the food products and properly prepare. Donations to food banks and employee take-home policies are pretty common strategies too. But just a word of caution, like anything, you'll want to trust but verify. So if you're working with third parties to handle your various waste streams, you'll want to be sure that those food waste streams are being diverted as intended. You don't want to find that your donated product is turning up somewhere in the market for resale, or if other waste streams are just going directly to the landfill, regardless of your efforts, things like that. So just something to consider. And if you're thinking of implementing a food waste management system, the approach is quite similar to other management systems. You want to start by defining what is in and what is out of scope. Starting small is better than not starting at all. You'll want to determine how you're going to measure, who's going to measure, where you're going to document this, what units you're going to measure in, so that there is consistency. And you'll want to be able to capture the information so that you can later correlate a dollar amount to the waste that's being generated and reduced. You definitely want to train and incentivize your employees. And of course, there's going to be the need to create and implement policies. You'll want to verify that measurements are being taken and documented during some internal audits. You'll want to have tools readily available and accessible to those that are doing the measurements. And you'll also want to consider ways to flag large amounts of waste that get generated due to a significant event. So if there is equipment that breaks down and that generates a high amount of waste, you'll want to be able to identify that in those records, because if you can correlate a dollar amount to the waste that's being generated from breakdowns and things like that, it can help justify the need for possibly some new equipment. But then you want to make sure you review results during management reviews. And if you're not reaching your targets, then simply implement corrective actions or consider different strategies so that you can meet your targets. But it's really just all about continuous improvement. And then lastly, this slide depicts the food recovery hierarchy. Anytime you can divert food from the lower sections of this triangle to anywhere a little bit higher up, it is a good thing. Of course, elimination is ideal and is best, but there are other good options before you have to resort to the landfill. Okay. So now I pass it over to Prit to speak a little bit on the regulations.
All right. Thank you very much, Kim Knoll. And I would straight away go to my part of the presentation, and we'll talk a little bit about the regulations. Actually, Kim Knoll has already talked about a lot of different aspects of how we can, what are the ways and the means we can reduce the waste. So I will be talking more about how we can make sure those products that we have, and specifically the regulations, the global regulations, how we can put them in. So let's dive into there. So what I will be touching more upon the global, I would say the practices and the efforts that are being taken into consideration as far as reducing food waste and loss is concerned. So I will be delving into various continents, I would say the North America, US, Canada, as well as European nations, what kind of efforts and what kind of regulations they're trying to put in as far as the reducing of those food waste and loss is concerned. So moving on to US, what you will see that as per the US 2030 food loss and waste reduction goal. Now, this is a really great initiative from the federal interagency collaboration between Environmental Protection Agency, U.S. Department of Agriculture, and obviously FDA to reduce food loss and waste. And this has been into implementation for a few years now. And the goal, what they're trying to is to seek to cut food loss and waste in about half by the year 2030. So it's a very ambitious plan, and we are already into 2025. So in 5 years from now, they are thinking of reducing those food loss and waste by certain innovations by the government taking those initiatives, as well as from the establishments, the processing, I would say processing establishments. It's all across the supply chain. Just we have to understand how and what are the means which are most effective in controlling the food waste and a loss that we can prevent in the supply chain, right from the slaughter farms or any plant farms to processing facilities, from the transportation to the retail, and then moving on to the consumer level. What are the ways? What are the means? And yes, again, it's a very ambitious plan, but it's a really good looking, and hopefully we can achieve some of those primary objectives moving forward. And that's the goal here. And this is what EPA, Environmental Protection Agency of US, came up with. So a kind of like a most preferred to the least preferred way of how to reduce the environmental impacts on the wasted food. And this is about it's again as part of the wasted food scale, like a great representation. On the left-hand corner, you see on the green it's talking about the preventing wasted food. What are some of the means, the produce manufacturers, the buyers, and the servers, the restaurants, the retail chain, the food service, what is needed and what you can do there. So the most preferred scale, what to do to donate, rescue, and redistribute food to people, and if there is some leftovers, there are a lot of things obviously during production that may not conform to the standards. They may be good, or there are certain products that are best before dates and all kind of the things in the terms of labeling. There's a lot of misconception about if the best before is gone, then we cannot we cannot eat that product. It could be recycled, repurposed food for human consumption for some other activities. We can also go to the scale moving forward to the feed animals, turning wasted food into animal feed or something like that. So the initiative is to give encouragement and also some funding to the processors to see how they can recycle that product into a different kind of end user, or to leave unharvested. So in case of fresh fruits and vegetables or certain other crops, leave the crops in the fields for grazing or plow them in. And again, they act as when you plow them in, they act as a compost, and they have tons of minerals and nutrients that go into the soil, and eventually they help in the next cycle of the crop that a farmer is going to grow and harvest eventually. So composting is another effective way of processing wasted food into a soil, and enhancement, amendments, enrichments as part of composting those soils. And in aerobic digestion, so with the beneficial use of digestibles or biosolids, so to break them down into wasted food to create energy and a soil amendment. So, and the most, I would say these are some of the most preferred ways of, again, reducing the environmental impacts and also to a larger scale, reducing food waste and loss. But again, obviously, the least preferred method would be to anaerobic digestions, and then applying to the land, incorporating raw wasted food into the soil. And certainly, it's always advisable to avoid sending down into the drain, landfill, or incinerate, with or without any energy recovery. So obviously, the last step that we are talking about, putting into the landfills or just subjecting it to the environmental impacts, what we are doing is we are generating a lot of those greenhouse gases as the methane is produced over a period of time, and it's creating a lot of environmental impacts we can see. And we are also debating of those global warmings and irregular environmental, weather patterns. So here, this is as per the definition of Food and Agricultural Organization Sustainability Development Goals, and this what talks about several steps in here before harvest and slaughters, on-farm harvest operations. So it's talking about the food loss index that focuses on food losses that occur from production up to the retail level. So this chain is again part of the supply chain, from the slaughter farms, from the plant farms, all along the supply chain during growth, during harvest, transportation, moving on to the processing activities, and then transporting, obviously, stock and distribution, creating inventories, and then production and packing. So it's also measures the changes in percentage losses for let's say basket of 10 main commodities by country in comparison with the base period. So you can see on the top the specific indicator 1231 is a food loss index, which is occurring at the time of harvest, operations, inventory controls, overstocking, and obviously during production and packing, if those are not meeting those conformities or the standards that specific product carries. And also the 1231B talks about the food waste index at the retail or the food services level, and also at the consumers level. Having excess food being into the inventory, which eventually is out of consumption time, let's say the best before date, or we are talking about the expiry of the product. The proposal for measuring food waste, which comprises the retail and consumption levels, is under the development, obviously. But yes, they are trying to understand consumer behaviors and the retail practices in order to come up with certain clear indicators which may help eventually in the future to reduce those food waste and loss. And this one is again the method to measure. It's again from that initiative that has been taken, and these are some of the guidances, some of the guidance that has been provided for the stakeholders to look at what they can do, from defining what kind of goals are they going to achieve as far as food loss and waste reduction is concerned, and what kind of reporting structures and the principles they will have, what is in the scope of that food loss and waste. So are we talking about the distribution practices, the processing activities, innovations, and all that stuff we are talking about, and then to decide on what are we going to quantify as part of our losses, and how we are going to recoup from those things. Obviously, you will be generating a lot of data as you're going forward too, so you have to analyze the data. Where are those key points or key areas where you can implement certain practices which help in reduction during processing activities, inventory results, obviously, and not building excess inventories, and forecasting it based on artificial intelligence, like tools that you have, incorporating more of them to forecasting the needs and the wants of the people, and the consumer behavior will certainly help in that. And then obviously assessing the uncertainties, like during certain uncertain weather conditions, or certain pandemic situations, something like that. So we have to come up with certain solutions to that too, obviously in preparations for emergency situations like that. And then making sure that we are reviewing all those data that we have, and coming up with a very robust plan where we can build an inventory where we can reduce those food losses as much as possible, and obviously setting those targets over a period of time, and forecasting them in an appropriate way. So this is some of the things that we can do as part of it. And then coming back to, again, reducing waste and loss in the European continent. This is what we have. They have initiated like a very, I would say it's a very again, ambitious plan of waste frame directive. That's what we'll be talking about, farm to fork strategy, which aims to accelerate our transition to a sustainable food system that should have a neutral or positive environmental impact. So we're talking about sustainable food production, and then obviously the production, which is we do have those inventories, sustainable food processing and distribution, obviously, and making sure that sustainable food consumption behaviors as part of the consumers. And then eventually that would be leading us to kind of a control towards food loss and waste prevention methods. And it also directs us to how to mitigate certain climate change and adapt to those impacts, in certain unfavorable conditions. And the other primary objective is to ensure food security, nutrition, and public health, obviously making sure that everyone has access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious and sustainable food. The idea is, yes, from farm to fork, what are the sustainability measures or methods that we can employ using modern innovation tools to bring about prevention and reducing food loss and waste. So this is the one of those diagrams showing that what the food waste in the European Union by main economic sectors, and this is data is up to 2020. So, and it's talking about per kilogram of per kilograms per inhabitant. So you can see the amount of product that goes into food waste, as per different sectors here, retail and other distributions, primary production from the restaurants to the food services, and including the households and the manufacture of food products and beverages. So it's significant, and as we have talked about in our previous slides, how it's costing us in terms of economic value, the food security situations, as well as the global greenhouse gases productions, which is eventually resulting into significant, I would say, weather patterns which are not favorable for sustaining. And this is one of the ways frame directive from European Union. It primarily is directed towards 5 different steps, from prevention to disposal. Obviously, disposal is the least preferred method, which is the waste, and it's talking about setting the basic concepts and of like how we can make sure we do understand what the waste is, and how we can recycle and recover those products and reduce those wastes. So it also explains when waste ceases to be the waste and becomes a secondary raw material, what are the ways we can do that, and how to distinguish between waste and waste byproducts. So the directive has a lot of information that helps in preventing waste. Obviously, is a preferred option. The same thing goes along from one continent to another, the most preferred way of doing the things. in order to prevent food waste and loss, and obviously, and then deterring from sending waste to the landfills, which should be our last resort, like as far as food production and food supply chain is concerned, to minimize those waste and loss. And this is one of the guidance that is from pretty much similar to what we have seen in the earlier slide. It's one of those global food safety initiative schemes like FSSC, and this provides us the guideline on how the food waste and loss can be implemented effectively. And FSSC has a very good, robust global food safety management system as far as this particular aspect is concerned. And then coming on to Canada, how we can reduce food waste and loss in this country. Canada has embarked on some very ambitious plans in a hierarchy of solutions to address food loss and waste. Again, it's the same theme about directing towards most preferred methods towards the least preferred. How we can improve operations and practices to reduce generation of those food products that we are not going to use them, and then donate surplus food to feed people. You can also manufacture animal feed from the products that you have or other food products. Recycling means that we can synthesize certain ingredients, the byproducts that we have already produced for products like pharmaceuticals, cosmetics, and fertilizers. And it can also help in producing biodiesel from waste oils in certain industries, or renewable natural gas through anaerobic digestion. So it also certainly helps in creating a compost, which is a nutrient-rich material for growth and harvest of certain crops. Disposing, obviously, is the least preferred one, and rather than sending it to landfill or incineration, again, deterring or asking not to put them in, just to avoid any future generation of methane gases and eventually those global warmings. So why do food loss happens in food processing? I would be a little bit specifically talking about why this food loss is occurring in food processing. This is a general guidance from the Agriculture Canada as well as CFIA guidelines. You can process and equipment inefficiencies and malfunctions resulting in products that do not meet quality specifications. Oftentimes, equipment inefficiencies and malfunctions could result in significant losses of the food that is being processed. Lack of flexibility to reincorporate or repurpose off-spec products. Oftentimes, the sites do not have enough capability, I would say, or the methods that they have devised for products that are put on a hold, that are not meeting the specs, how they can be reconditioned, repurposed, they can be reworked into certain type of products which may be marketable, and they may be able to sell those products. Inaccurate supply and demand forecasting, building too much of an inventory. Again, there are certain modern day tools like artificial intelligence, methods where we can certainly be more pragmatic in demanding the forecast and effectively reducing the waste. Rejections due to quality standards, yes. There are certain ways, again, if inefficiencies in your quality systems, in your production systems, which can be corrected if there are rejections at the consumer level. That product could be brought back in terms of how it can be reconditioned or reworked. There should be some kind of energy into those areas, how we can rework those products, either into making that product safe again, or reconditioning into other kinds of products, animal feed, or directing it towards other industries like pharmaceuticals or durables. Poor quality inputs, yes. Production line changes, trimming and culling. These are all the processing activities that significantly impact food production and waste. And obviously, if the quality is not met, generally the processors will be sending it to the landfills or garbage disposal sites or something. So yes, we can certainly come up with some innovative ideas, and Government of Canada has been like having a lot of incentives for the processors in terms of food-based reduction challenges, and these are some of the ways that they are talking about the business model that prevents food waste through artificial intelligence, robotics, automations in your systems, inventory management, digitalizing it, making it more efficient, a live event, in dynamic pricing in your products, rather than keeping those products sitting on the shelf for a longer period of time and eventually going into the waste because of expiry of that product or best before being away. So precision agriculture, again, the innovations in agricultural practices, how to grow and harvest certain produces, fresh fruits and vegetables can help. Consumer apps are there these days, highlighting the key aspects of your food that you are processing and selling can also be very good tool where you are educating your consumers about the product that you have in the marketplace or that you have been producing. Logistics, again, transportation waste is a big issue as far as food waste is concerned. Certainly, there could be more innovations in terms of how we control our food products during transportation. And blockchain smart contracts, again, blockchain terminal technology is very much used, or it's in use these days as far as the traceability of the product is concerned, the shelf life of the product is concerned, and also the live tracking of your products in terms of temperature abuse during transportation and all that, which can be effectively implemented. Another challenge that food waste reduction challenge that Agriculture Canada came up with is about business models that divert food waste. So having a very robust plan from business to business marketplaces, some smart marketing, I would say, strategies, direct to consumer marketplaces, it's always about seeing that how you can effectively sell your product in the shortest period of time so that consumers are aware, upcycling your products, recovery of food product that is it's possible to be reworked, recycled, and then food byproducts processing into ancillary industries and other industries like feed industry or other industries such as pharmaceuticals. So yeah, this is a very ambitious initiative, and it's actually directed towards providing certain incentives to the businesses to take those challenges and bring to their processing activities in order to reduce those food waste and loss. So what are the opportunities to reduce food loss? These are some of the things that certainly food packaging, processing, and manufacturing sector can, I would say, consider, continue work to raise awareness of the environmental and economic benefits of addressing those food losses, encouraging facilities to measure food loss within their operations and to set reduction targets, develop food industry approaches for lean continual improvement assessments, and provide training and support for the implementation of them, and develop formal agreements between government and industry to increase corporate focus on those issues. So this is as per VCMI 2019 directory with directions actually, which has Government of Canada has embraced on and has decided to bring it to the processors along the supply chain to see what are the effective measures that can be implemented. And there are certain benefits of surplus food recovery and redistribution by expanding funding for storage and transportation infrastructure to increase recovery of those surplus food. So Government of Canada, actually, every province in Canada has certain incentives for processors to look for the funding from the government agencies, several agencies that can help in innovations in the storage of the food products and transportation infrastructure, including the packaging conditions, the packaging types that a country or the company can use to make the food more sustainable and in order to reduce waste and loss. And obviously, those policies are also supporting surplus food donations. Yeah, it's a big time, and most of the provinces have policies, and they have those incentives, such as the tax incentives for the industry that is already implementing those strategies. And obviously, they also have certain protections as well as liabilities concerned for the food waste and the products that may be impacted, or they are not meeting those consumer requirements. So there are those incentives such as tax incentives and liability protection or protection for the processors. So yeah, those are very robust way of, or the methods that processors can consider for the future, production processing environments in their sites, on the companies. And the last, I would like to quickly discuss about Bureau Veritas, how we are actually promoting food waste management system standards for various processing facilities, which obviously Bureau Veritas has a lots of expertise and knowledge and the manpower that can help in the sites in developing and implementing those strategies according to the business model that they have, and also keeping in consideration the incentives that the government is providing across the globe. So these are some of the things we do. We quantify, we scope management systems with resources. We can give you lots of input on the resources, prevention plan, and management of food loss and waste. And then we can also help you in devising certain effective strategies regarding monitoring, reporting, and improvements as far as food waste and loss is concerned, and where Bureau Veritas can certainly help out. This is what we do, quantification of food losses and waste across the supply chain. And it's one of those strategies. We have measures at every step of your supply chain, coming up with the effective plan, how you can ensure those food loss and waste at every single step, from processing to distribution to the transportation to reducing the global emissions, and eventually making sure that the product can be recycled, reworked into various other products. At every step, we have some actually guidance to give to the sites so that they can implement those strategies effectively. And yes, food loss and waste management systems, the prevention plan, it talks about the justification of objectives, implementation of the action, designation of the personnel responsible, and what kind of resources you will have in terms of the people, financials, and the materials, what kind of resources you would need in order to effectively implement those strategies, and meeting those deadlines as far as the people who are involved in those practices is concerned. And then there is a way to follow up and make sure if there were deficiencies in the process, there is always a way to improve them as part of your continuous improvement process or continuous improvement strategies. And that's what we do as a procedural overview. We have effective tools for food loss and waste management systems, providing trainings, managing documentation, quantification, and preventive plans, devising those plans for you guys, reporting communications, monitoring results, and implementing improvements as part of your continuous improvement standards. And I will now give it back to Kim Knoll for her final slides. And at the end of this session, we will have some questions and answers. If you have certain questions, feel free to ask them, please. Yes, Kim, thank you very much.
Thanks. Can you see my screen, my slide there?
Yes, we can.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Mhm.
So just wanted to share a couple of resources with everyone. When putting this together, there were so many. So there's lots more than this available, but these are just a sampling. But on the left, there's just a few I would like to call out. There is FSSC 22000 has an excellent guidance document that's very detailed. That's available for free on their website. There's a link here, and this will all get shared. But if you need it, I can always assist you with that. I'm available. I can be a resource to you as well as the BV team if you are considering implementing a food waste management system. Most companies are taking steps to reduce their waste anyway, so it may make sense to have a certification program to help with improvement and to help get some recognition for those efforts that you're making. There would be a logo that's involved in that certification program to help market and share your efforts with your customers. And we do have a BV has a food waste training two courses coming up in the near future, July 9th and October 8th. And this will go into much more detail into the standard and some practical solutions for how to successfully implement the waste management system at your facility. So that is available, and I think Allison's going to make sure you have the information on that afterwards. I did want to include the link to a short video on YouTube. It is in Spanish, but it's really cool. BV Spain and Lidl Spain have partnered, and Lidl is the first retailer to achieve a food waste certification. And so the video is pretty short, but it's pretty cool to watch. And then lastly, I just wanted to call out a link to there is an ISO standard, ISO 2001 or 20001. This is under development, but this may soon be available, and it will focus also on food loss and waste. And so that's something you might want to have on your radar as well. So that's all I have. So I'll hand it back to Allison.
Thank you, Kim, and thank you, Dr. Hora, for today. It's been great. We just do have a few questions here. I have one where someone has asked, where do we start? Should I start with the training? Where do I start?
Well,
they are a smaller company.
I would start with I would suggest the training. It's going to be much more in depth than our short little webinar here, and it will really help answer questions on how to get started. I think that would be a great first step, and of course, the BV team can be a resource to you as well. So we can have a call to kind of talk through any questions.
Right. Is there a gap assessment that could be done on site?
Absolutely. Yes, we can certainly support that to help companies as they are working to implement the requirements.
Great. Well, that's all that I have for today. Do you guys have any other questions for us? Please use the chat box. We'll keep it up even after this is done and over with. Once again, thank you for joining us today. I really do appreciate everybody's time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.